We are 1/3 of the way through 2024, so I thought now would be a great time to take stock and compile a list of the best looking upcoming VR games still to come this year. Now I won't lie to you guys, this was a tough list to pull together. I just about managed to find 10 games that have me really excited, and then a further 4 honourable mentions. I wasn't exactly swamped with choices or cutting games out to keep the runtime down, so although these 14 games do look incredibly promising, we definitely need a showcase or two to pad the roster out with some more games sooner rather than later. But for now, let's just get into this list and look at the top 10 best looking VR games still to come in 2024. Up first we have Behemoth. Now this might actually be my most anticipated VR game. It might sit at the very top of my most wanted list, but it sits at number 10 on this list because I do have some considerable doubts about it releasing in 2024. As it stands, we just have this trailer, this gorgeous cinematic non-gameplay trailer for the game, which was released last year at the Game Awards, I believe. This is a new effort from Skydance Interactive, the developers of Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. Now Walking Dead Saints and Sinners is still one of the very best VR games that money can buy, and this is Skydance's second attempt at something brand new for VR audiences. Now unlike Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, Behemoth seems to have a more high fantasy action adventure setting. Looks a little bit Nordic, maybe a little bit Scandinavian. We've got some troll hunter vibes and some massive Shadow of the Colossus vibes. This is another action adventure game, lots of swords and shields, but in here we seem to be going up against some huge creatures, which is something I haven't seen in VR. Shadow of the Colossus is one of my all-time favourite games ever. It is incredible, and if Skydance can replicate the feeling of climbing a giant beast in VR, this will be game of the century for me. Behemoth looks amazing, but sits at number 10 because I don't know this will come out in 2024. In at number 9, we have another game where you fight massive creatures. Attack on Titan Unbreakable for the MetaQuest family of headsets. Now this game was scheduled to release in 2023, but has since been delayed into the latter half of 2024. As a huge fan of the anime, I've played all the fan-made VR games already, and I have to say, we have some fantastic Attack on Titan VR games available right now. Head over to SideQuest if you want to get your Titan slaying fix as soon as possible. But for me personally, I'm excited to see an official effort with some budget behind it, because although the unofficial games are undoubtedly fun, the environments, Titan animations, and feeling of zipping along with your omnidirectional mobility gear could all be improved. Fingers crossed Unbreakable gives us cinematic VR experiences that really capture the feeling of going up against these terrifying creatures. Next up we have Ark and Age, a gorgeous looking VR action adventure game that utilises full physics based combat, a full body player rig, magic infused swords and guns, a wide range of traversal options, and some beautiful visuals to create a VR experience worth getting excited for. From the creature designs to the chunky looking combat, there are so many reasons that I want to get my hands on this game as soon as physically possible. It's great to see a new physics based VR experience that prioritizes immersion, weight, and a full body rig over the floating hands and arcadey combat of so many other VR games that we get these days. The only reason I think that Ark and Age isn't sitting higher on this list is because I'm unsure of the general flow of gameplay. From the trailer it looks like you move from large combat arena to large combat arena, and I'm unsure if there's any connective tissue or story between these sections. Part of me feels like it also looks somewhat roguelike-ish, but I know that's a forbidden word in the world of VR right now, so I shouldn't make such a bold and explosive claim. I love VR flight sims, but I love VR combat flight sims even more, and Aces of Thunder looks set to be one of the most visually impressive VR combat flight sims around, and one of the most exciting PSVR2 exclusives on the horizon. After the less than impressive Project Wingman release for PSVR2, which only offered a small handful of VR-centric missions rather than the full game that PCVR players can access, players have been left hungry for something more substantial. So if Aces of Thunder manages to feel as good to play play as it looks visually, then this will be a huge win for users of Sony's newest VR platform. Here's hoping the devs really lean into all the haptic features of the PSVR2 headsets and Sense controllers to overload players' sense of immersion. I want to feel like I'm rocketing through the sky at high speeds, blasting enemy planes out of the air and barrel rolling my way to victory. The original Into the Radius is one of the most in-depth, satisfying VR survival experiences that money can buy. I've spent countless hours collecting guns and trinkets from the zone, running away from spooky shadow creatures after realising it's nearly nighttime, and then bringing all those trinkets back to my safe house to then spend even more time carefully organising them all into little piles on my shelves. There's a real meticulous joy to the gameplay loop of the original Into the Radius, and those who want a simulation survival experience were won over almost immediately by it. However, it's now time for an upgrade. This summer, Into the Radius 2 goes into early access on Steam, and from this short glimpse trailer, it looks like it's retaining everything that made the original so great, whilst looking better than ever. If Into the Radius 2 just ends up being a prettier, more polished version of Into the Radius 1, then I will be a very happy man, because that original game truly is something special. Vertigo Games very rarely miss. They are one of the finest VR developers around right now, and they have given us some of the very best VR games over the last 10 years or so. From Star Trek Bridge Crew to Hellsweeper, Seventh Guest to A Fisherman's Tale, and After the Fall to Arizona Sunshine. The list of VR games that this one studio have delivered is absolutely staggering, so it's no surprise that they have been entrusted with an IP as beloved as Metro. Metro Awakening is a brand new game in the Metro franchise that has been built from the ground up for VR, and boy oh boy am I excited for this one. Having played the flat entries in this franchise, I can see it working beautifully in virtual reality. The oppressive Metro setting, the frantic changing of your air filters, and the hideous, terrifying, mutated creatures that you have to face on your journey. This franchise has all the ingredients to make a top-tier VR product, and Vertigo Games have the special sauce to pull it all together. Metro might not be quite an Assassin's Creed or Grand Theft Auto size intellectual property in terms of popularity in the world of gaming, but I would place a bet right now on this particular series making the leap into virtual reality more successfully than other flat IP that have come before. This next one is a bit of a strange situation, and it's probably the first time, for VR anyway, where we're seeing a complete remaster or remake of a game that only released a handful of years ago. Wanderer is an incredible, mind-bending, time-hopping puzzle adventure game that released in January of 2022. I absolutely loved the game. It was great visually, mechanically and thematically. It challenged me with puzzles that interlinked across multiple levels and areas, meaning an item I found on the moon might be the key to solving a puzzle back in an Aztec temple I visited earlier in the game. It was a real gem, and one that I'd normally recommend to every single VR player. However, now I'd say hang on to your pennies, because Wanderer Fragments of Fate is a complete redo of the original Wanderer that aims to enhance everything that made the original release so great. Better visuals, better interactions, better environments, brand new full body avatars and physics driven platforming, as well as 3 brand new levels exclusive to this new version of the game. This is a proper remake, and it shows that the devs perhaps didn't have the resources originally needed to achieve their original vision to its fullest extent, whereas now, after the success of the original and a proper sequel on the way, they are able to revisit this world and nail the execution this time with a far more impressive final product. The story of this next game is so unbelievably cool. Gunman Contracts started its life as a mod built using the incredible Half-Life Alyx modding tools, and then it was distributed for free via the game's Steam workshop. It quickly became one of the most, if not the most, popular mods for Half-Life Alyx, with videos about it on YouTube rocketing into viral territory, and people were frantically asking, where can I buy this game? Or what game is this? Only to discover it's a free mod for Half-Life Alyx. Well, the solo dev ANB_Seth must have seen all the people asking where they can buy the full game, and they decided to cut the ties to Half-Life Alyx and build a full standalone product, which is what you're seeing right now in this trailer. This is Gunman Contracts Standalone, a high-intensity VR first-person shooter that was spawned from a popular Half-Life Alyx mod, and it also just so happens to be the closest you can get to feeling like John Wick in VR. From the slick gun attachment menu, which you can access on the fly mid-mission, to the gorgeous visuals and chunky audio design, this is a VR FPS fan's dream come true. If you're looking at this gameplay right now and you're thinking, I can't wait for the full product to release, then make sure you check out the 2 free-to-play mod levels in Half-Life Alyx. They contain some of the very best VR action you'll ever hope to find. It wouldn't be a new VR games list without a zombie game, now would it? In at number 2 is Zombie Army VR. Now I know most people are probably sick of VR zombie shooters, but I'm not most people. And I love Zombie Army Trilogy. It's one of the best flat screen zombie shooters around because it manages to deliver near constant action, great feeling weaponry, and it doesn't take itself too seriously, with a wacky grindhouse tone that suits the story of blasting waves upon waves of Nazi zombies beautifully. So naturally, I was extremely happy to see Zombie Army making the leap into VR. It feels like a natural fit, and from this gameplay trailer it looks like it's bringing all the silly fun of the flat screen games with it, although I'm yet to see any slow motion bullet time sniper elite style headshots. I really hope that made it into VR as well. The VR release even includes authentic World War II weaponry, player progression, unlockables, and co-op play, which were all integral elements in Zombie Army Trilogy. I for one can't wait to get stuck into this. You can never have too many VR zombie games. Time for a couple of honourable mentions before we get to my number 1 pick. First up is Into the Darkness, a PCVR single-player physics-driven adventure game that has some serious Boneworks vibes. This one has actually been cooking for years now, with this original trailer ending with a tease of a release date in 2021. After missing that by 3 years now, I'm still not sure if 2024 is the year we'll get to play Into the Darkness, but I really do hope it releases soon, because frankly, it looks awesome. Zero Caliber 2 up next in the honourable mention section. The original Zero Caliber is still some of the very best co-op FPS fun you can have in VR. The game feels like a Rainbow Six Vegas terrorist hunt stretched out into a campaign-length experience with tons of levels, weapons, attachments, and set pieces. And the whole thing is 100% better if you bring a buddy along for the ride. The only reason this doesn't land in the core list is because it looks very similar to the original. I need to see a little more gameplay to understand the upgrades. Next up we have Silent Slayer Vault of the Vampire, a single player game about killing vampires whilst they sleep peacefully in their coffins because you're a horrible mean person and also a coward. I mean, who kills someone whilst they're sleeping? That is so cheap. Gameplay wise, the game looks to be a series of increasingly difficult puzzle and skill based scenarios where you have to avoid triggers and traps to get the job done. Fail and the vampire wakes up to give you a stern telling off. And the final honourable mention goes to GTA San Andreas VR. Do I need to elaborate on why it wasn't in the main list? Does it even exist? Did it ever exist? Is there a higher chance of pigs actually flying than us ever getting this game at this point? Who knows? I'm tired. I'm losing the will to believe in this one. But there's always a glimmer of hope until they tell us it's dead. Now for my number 1 pick of the best upcoming VR games of 2024. Aliens Rogue Incursion. As a lifelong Alien fan, I could not be more excited at the prospect of our first official VR Alien game. Alien Isolation is absolutely superb in VR, and I'm forever grateful that the Mother mod allows us to experience the game in that way. But an Aliens game built from the ground up for VR with an emphasis on horror and action sounds like a dream come true for someone like me. Now currently I have 2 apprehensions. Firstly, we have no gameplay. I'm going to need to see some in-game capture as soon as possible because I need to understand what this game looks like, what vibe they're going for, are we looking at realistic visuals or a stylized approach, is it a wave shooter or is there an actual story-driven campaign here? I have a lot of questions. Secondly, the developers Survios have a patchy track record. Westworld Awakening, Raw Data and Creed Rise to Glory are all excellent VR games, but Walking Dead Onslaught was very rough, especially when compared side by side with the exceptional Saints and Sinners. However, every project is a new opportunity to nail it, and Survios are more than capable of delivering a solid Aliens VR game if given the right time and the right resources. For now, I am optimistic and ultimately just happy that one of my favourite franchises of all time is officially coming to VR. And that's it for this list of my top 10 upcoming VR games of 2024. Let me know down in the comments if I've missed any of the big hitters you're excited for this year, and let me know if you'll be picking up any of the games I've mentioned today. 2024 is heating up for VR users, but I'd say we could do with a couple of VR showcases and some big announcements to really pad out the latter stages of this year. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please leave a like, drop a comment down below and hit subscribe, and I'll see you all soon for another one. Take care.